Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast. And today I'm going to go my review of WWE's Backlash. Before we even get started with the review, man, I don't know if you guys have heard or not. There was some sad breaking news that happened over the weekend. Unfortunately, we lost Sabu. Sabu ended up passing away this weekend that just passed. And I kind of wanted to talk about it a little bit. I know he just had his retirement match. I believe it was against Joey Janela not too long ago. And it was a good match. It wasn't a bad match at all. But the reason why I want to talk about Sabu as well, like I said, unfortunately he did pass away, and rest in peace to Sabu. And my thoughts and prayers go out to his family and friends as well. But the memories that I have from Sabu, man, Sabu is a legend, an absolute legend. I mean, obviously everybody remembers Sabu, obviously from his time at ECW. But he's had some great matches, man. He's had some great moments throughout his career, memorable moments. I remember watching, getting the VHS tapes back in the day for ECW, and the matches that he's had with Taz, teaming up with RVD, the matches he's had with RVD, and the memories he made in ECW, working under Paul Heyman. I also believe he did some work over in FMW as well. Sabu's a legend. When you think of Extreme Wrestling, and, the Mount Rushmore of, extreme wrestling, Sabu has to be up there, very high on the list. And it's unfortunate, man. I think he passed away at 60 years old. And it's one of those things that caught a lot of people off guard, to be honest with you, and myself included. Like I said, he just wrestled his retirement match not too long ago against, I believe it was Joey Janela, if I'm not mistaken. It's unfortunate news, and it's one of those things where, when I found out the news, I was like, damn, and I get it, man. It's the world we live in, no one lives forever, but it's sad, man. It's unfortunate. Like I said, he just had his retirement match, and, after finding out the news, I was like, damn, I remember growing up watching Sabu wrestle. Sabu's had some great matches, like I mentioned earlier, great moments throughout his career. I remember when he jumped off the Raw logo when ECW invaded Monday Night Raw. It was a great moment. It was a great moment. It was great for ECW at that time too, because they really put ECW on the map at that time when they did initially invade Monday Night Raw under the likes of Paul Heyman. So, and like I said, man, the matches he had in ECW were great, absolutely great. The matches he had with Taz, teaming up with RVD. Matches that he's had with RVD, you know what I mean? Even the matches with Taz were legendary matches for both Taz and Sabu. And it's just one of those things, man, where it's definitely unfortunate. Godspeed to Sabu. And like I said, man, my thoughts and prayers go out to his friends and family at this time, man. And like I said, rest in peace to Sabu. But moving on with the podcast, man, we are here for Backlash. Backlash took place this past weekend. To be honest with you, man, it did not disappoint, and I'm going to give more details on it towards the end of the podcast, but what I will say is this, before I get in the review as far as Backlash is concerned. To me personally, man, I think Backlash was better than night one of WrestleMania 41. Minus, obviously the triple threat match. It was Backlash from top to bottom was not a bad card. I know a lot of people get upset and they're up in arms about WWE only putting on 5 matches for these pay-per-views, but I mean, I got to be honest with you guys, man. It comes down to me personally. I'm all for having 5 matches for a PLE rather than 12. To be honest with you, because to me, I've always been big on the fact of that, quality over quantity. To be honest with you, if I can get 5 quality matches that actually have something that's meaningful, I'm all for it. I'm locked in. There's no reason why a lot of these pay-per-views, especially even AEW, man, they put on like 12 matches and the matches mean jack shit. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying they're bad matches, but it makes the card go way too long. The matches are unnecessary. There's no storyline, no build. When you look at Backlash, you get 5 seemingly premier matches, and it's quality, man. It's quality over quantity, and I've always been a big advocate for that. Because there's no need to have 12 matches for a pay-per-view. You can have 5 banger matches that seemingly, set off the entire pay-per-view. So for those people out there who are like, oh, they're pissed off about WWE not putting on more pay-per-view matches for their PLEs. I honestly, bro, I mean, I don't understand why you would be upset. I mean, to me, honestly, I think the show went off the air roughly around 9:45, close to 10 o'clock. And there was five banger matches on the card, to be honest with you, including the main event, which I will talk about here towards the end of the podcast. But starting off Backlash, we get a fatal four-way for the U.S. title. It is Jacob Fatu defending the U.S. title against LA Knight, Drew McIntyre, and Damian Priest. I thought this was a good match, man. Back and forth matchup with Fatu and Knight both exchanging in the middle of the ring. Knight was trying to keep the pace of the match, with Knight hitting an elbow drop on Drew McIntyre. Priest then hits a hurricanrana off the top on Jacob Fatu. McIntyre and Fatu both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Fatu hitting a swanton off the top rope. Knight then hits a BFT in the middle of the ring. Priest then hits a choke slam on Knight in the middle of the ring. McIntyre then hits a Claymore on Priest. McIntyre then hits a Future Shock DDT on Fatu, followed by another Future Shock on LA Knight. McIntyre then hits a Claymore kick on Knight for a near fall. Knight gets up, hits an elbow drop on Fatu for a near fall. Priest then hits a choke slam on Drew McIntyre on the outside through a set of tables. WWE doctors come out and check on McIntyre. Seemingly, it seemed as if McIntyre was actually legitimately injured during this matchup, with doctors checking on Drew McIntyre. Solo Sikoa is here. Solo then saves Jacob Fatu from an possible elbow drop from LA Knight off the top rope on the announce table. LA Knight then goes after Solo, but all of a sudden, LA Knight is attacked by the debut, if you will, of Jeff Cobb. Jeff Cobb makes his WWE debut. He ends up attacking LA Knight. Fatu then looks confused, kind of pissed off. Fatu then capitalizes on this by hitting a moonsault off the top rope on LA Knight, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match and still U.S. champion is Jacob Fatu. Couple things I want to talk about this, man. Number one, this was a great match. I will say this. When you look at WrestleMania 41, and I have mentioned this multiple times in the past since WrestleMania 41 has happened, LA Knight versus Jacob Fatu for the U.S. title was one of my best matches for me personally at WrestleMania 41. And then we get this U.S. title matchup here, the Fatal 4-Way, and it was an absolute banger, to be honest with you. I mean, the chokeslam spot from Damian Priest on Drew McIntyre, landing on those tables on the outside, it was brutal. And it was a great spot in the match. And then we get the debut, if you will, not in-ring debut, but the debut of Jeff Cobb. Jeff Cobb was a highly sought-out free agent from New Japan. You know, he was hinting around possibly joining WWE. He finally joins WWE and attacks LA Knight. Now, I don't know if Solo Sikoa is trying to reform the bloodline, or maybe it's just Fatu's on his own, and we have Solo, joining the likes of Jeff Cobb and Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa. We don't know. Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, unfortunately, are out right now due to injury, so right now it's just basically Solo Sikoa and Jeff Cobb. So we don't know what's going to happen with Jacob Fatu. Could we possibly see a match between Fatu and Jeff Cobb? Yeah, and I'll be absolutely all for it. I know a lot of people also, when it pertains to Jeff Cobb, are also pissed off that they brought him in. And the reason why they brought him in and why people are pissed off is because I believe Jeff Cobb is up there in age. He's like 43, 44. And we just had an abundance of releases as of recently with WWE. And some of those names that got releases, some of them because of their age or because of injury and stuff like that. So you bring in someone like Jeff Cobb, who's up there in the 40s. I mean, Shayna Baszler, I think, is 43. And Jeff Cobb's right around that. So, I mean, a lot of people were kind of like, man, it's kind of a slap in the face of the people that got released based on age, if that's the situation. And you bring in someone like Jeff Cobb, who seemingly is in his early 40s. So I can understand people's frustration with it. I don't know how Jeff Cobb is honestly going to play out in WWE, specifically on SmackDown. I'm not taking anything away from Jeff Cobb. I think he's a really good wrestler. He's very athletic for the size and stature that he is. My thing with Jeff Cobb is how long really legitimately wise he's going to be in WWE. Is it going to be a 5-year deal and he's gone? Because if we're looking at it from an age standpoint, if he's 42, 43, and we're adding, maybe a 5-year contract or 3 to 5 year contract, let's say 5 years, and let's say that, he's 43, you're looking at Jeff Cobb being, in contract talks after his 5-year deal when Jeff Cobb's, 48 years old. So I don't know how it's going to play out with Jeff Cobb, to be honest with you. If he is, in fact, 42, 43 years old, and he does sign a long, extended WWE contract deal. But again, it's one of those things where, you have to look at the narrative, and it's the bloodline. The bloodline storyline might not be as strong as it once was at WrestleMania 41 or the year before that. But they're still adding building blocks to that bloodline story, whether you guys like it or not. And to me, it's one of those things where it does age like a fine wine if they continue to keep building that bloodline storyline. They also have Hikuleo, which is the brother of, I believe, Tamatanga and Tagaloa. I think he's the younger brother. That he's also been training in the Performance Center down in NXT. So if they bring him into the fold as well, this is going to be a whole revamp of the bloodline being headlined by Solo Sikoa possibly. So we're going to see how it plays out. But I wasn't surprised to see Jeff Cobb. I was happy with the outcome of the Fatal 4-Way match. I think Jacob Fatu, to me personally, is one of the best free agent acquisitions that WWE has gotten. Not taking anything away from Penta. I think Penta does a fantastic job. I think Ray Phoenix is coming into his own. Obviously, Rusev and Aleister Black are kind of getting a slow start. But I think Jacob Fatu was one of the best acquisitions WWE has gotten in quite some time. And he is, that guy is talented, bro. That guy is a monster in the ring, a beast. Even that springboard moonsault off the top rope that he lands on his opponent's man, and especially a guy that's his size and his stature. I mean, I would say Jacob Fatu's, 265, pushing 3 bills. I mean, he's a big guy. And the fact that he hits that springboard moonsault literally effortlessly, it's awesome. You know what I mean? And he's going to be a force to be reckoned with on SmackDown. You know what I mean? So I'm all for him being U.S. champion. And I told you guys that it was only going to be a matter of time that we see championship gold around Jacob Fatu. And now he is currently holding the U.S. title after beating LA Knight at WrestleMania 41. So sky's the limit for Jacob Fatu, man. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. It is Lyra Valkyria defending the Women's Intercontinental title against Becky Lynch. This was kind of a grudge match that's pretty much stemmed from WrestleMania 41. I thought it was a good match. Honestly, I thought it was probably one of Becky's best matches. Back and forth matchup. Lyra was keeping the pace. Lyra hits a powerbomb on Becky for a near fall, followed by a leg drop off the top rope on Becky for a near fall. Valkyria and Lynch both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Lynch hitting a manhandle slam on Valkyria for a near fall. Valkyria then gets up, hits a moonsault on Becky for a near fall, followed by a Nightwing for a near fall. But Lyra then ultimately hits a roll-up on Becky Lynch, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match, and still Women's Intercontinental Champion, is Lyra Valkyria. Hats off to Lyra Valkyria for getting the win in this matchup. Speaking of Intercontinental Championships, we have Dominic Mysterio defending the Intercontinental Championship against Penta. Again, I thought this was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Mysterio and Penta, with Penta keeping the pace of the match. Mysterio then hits a tope into a DDT on Penta on the outside, followed by Dom hitting an Oblivion on Penta for a near fall. Penta then gets up, hits a Mexican Destroyer off the apron on Mysterio. Carlito is here. Finn and JD McDonough are here as well. Referee then throws out the Judgment Day, but Penta attacks the Judgment Day ringside. Penta then goes to the top rope, but Grande Americano then attacks Penta with the referee being distracted, which allowed Dominic Mysterio to hit his signature frog splash off the top rope, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match, and still Intercontinental Champion, is Dominic Mysterio. Hats off to Dominic Mysterio for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Gunther taking on Pat McAfee. I thought it was a good match, man. Back and forth matchup between Gunther and McAfee, with Gunther keeping the pace of the match. Gunther and Pat McAfee both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Pat McAfee landing multiple kicks on Gunther in the middle of the ring. Gunther then gets up, hits a power bomb on McAfee. Cole then hypes up Pat. Gunther then attacks Cole ringside. Pat then applies a sleeper hold, but the hold is broken. Then Gunther applies a sleeper hold of his own. Referee sounds for the bell, and your winner of the match is Gunther. Hats off to Gunther for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our main event of WWE's Backlash. It is John Cena defending the Universal title against Randy Orton. This event was in Randy Orton's hometown. Backlash was in St. Louis, Missouri. I thought it was a good match, man. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Orton and Cena, with Orton keeping the pace of the match. Cena then goes for an attitude adjustment, but Orton counters it with an RKO. Cena then hits an AA for a near fall. Orton hits an RKO. Cena then hits another AA on Orton. Cena then pushes Orton into the referee. The referee is taken out. Cena then hits another AA on Orton. Orton then hits an RKO again on John Cena. Orton then hits an AA of his own on Cena, throwing Cena over the announce table. Orton then hits an AA through the table. Orton then hits an RKO for a near fall. Cena then goes for after Orton with the title, but missed and took out the referee. Orton then hits an RKO on Cena, Nick Aldis comes out to the ring. He is checking on the referee. Orton then gets pissed off, hits an RKO on Nick Aldis, leaving Aldis in the middle of the ring. R-Truth is here. He comes out to the ring. Orton then hits an RKO on R-Truth. Cena then capitalizes on this by hitting a low blow on Orton. And then Cena then hits Orton with the title. Referee then gets in the ring. Cena goes for the cover, pins for the 3. And your winner of the match and still Universal Champion is John Cena. A couple of things I want to talk about, man, especially with Backlash before I get the hell up out of here. The John Cena-Randy Orton match. I will say this, and I will say this with confidence, man. This match with Cena and Orton by far was a hell of a lot better than the match that we got between Cody Rhodes and John Cena at WrestleMania 41 Night 2. Hands down. I think this was, productivity-wise, from John, this was a lot better of a match. I know a lot of people had their, displeasures with this match, calling it a spot fest, and it was. I mean, if you look at the narrative, man, throughout this entire match, you had multiple times of these guys hitting their finisher, from an AA to multiple RKOs, and no clear winner. John, I know some people were also pissed with the finish, that John hits, Orton with the title, referee gets in the ring, Orton gets, Cena gets the cover, 1, 2, 3, and he walks out, still Universal Champion. The problem is, with John, I will say this with John. I think the match was great with him and Orton. I thought it was a really good match. I think it was it was a lot better than the match he had with Cody Rhodes. I think the issue that I personally have with John is I think the heel turn for John is not really working out that well, to be honest with you. And my biggest fear with John, especially with this heel run, is we're going to get the same shit now from John that's going to be rinse and repeat as far as, in-ring promos and the jabs at the fans, and that's all we're going to keep getting from John. And we're going to keep, getting new opponents, and everything else like that. And John says that he wants competition. So you have to ask yourself this question: who is going to be next for John Cena now that he surpassed Randy Orton and beat Randy Orton at Backlash? Who is legitimately next for someone like John Cena for the Universal title? Because if you look at the narrative, the next big event that we have for WWE is Saturday Night's Main Event, I think taking place May 24th, the same weekend as Double or Nothing. So you had to ask yourself this: who is going to be the challenger to challenge John Cena for the Universal title? If he is wrestling, he's on the marquee for it, wrestling at Saturday Night's Main Event. We don't know what Cody Rhodes is doing. We don't know if Cody Rhodes is going to ask for a rematch against John. That match could possibly take place at Saturday Night's Main Event. We haven't heard anything from Cody Rhodes at all since he lost the Universal title at WrestleMania 41 Night 2. So we don't know what Cody Rhodes is doing. But I think for me, that's the biggest downfall for John, for me personally, is it was great that he turned heel. To me at this point, though, it's like, I'm not going to say the course is ran dry. I'm not saying that. But what I will say is are we going to keep getting the same John Cena heel week in and week out until he retires? Meaning, cut an in-ring promo, he's interrupted by a superstar, then we get a title match, John shits on the fans, and it's the same shit that we get with John, rinse and repeat. That I don't want. And I will say this too, man. If you look at the narrative from the match that, Cody and John had at WrestleMania 41 to the match that Cena just had with Randy Orton this past weekend, something was definitely missing from the WrestleMania 41 match between Rhodes and Cena. And I think The Rock has a lot to do with that. I know a lot of people are like, oh man, you got to get over this, The Rock shit. I'm not. I think The Rock ultimately, I think there was a lot of shit going on backstage, and a lot of it had to do with Dwayne The Rock Johnson. And I think ultimately The Rock not showing up at WrestleMania 41 kind of fucked up plans immensely for WWE. Big time. And, I'm a firm believer, and I might be the only one that's, on the mountain, like by myself on this, but I would say this. When it pertains to The Rock, if you're going to show up and do some shit like you did, you need to see that storyline through, to be honest with you. Because, unfortunately, at the end of the day, there still needs to be a match, in my honest opinion, between Cody Rhodes and The Rock. That needs to happen. I mean, even in the storyline now between Rhodes and John that happened at WrestleMania 41, this all happened because of The Rock. And, The Rock wants to, play kiss ass to Cody Rhodes. No, this match between The Rock and Rhodes needs to happen. Now, I don't know if that's going to take place at WrestleMania 42 in New Orleans. I have no idea. That match needs to happen. And I cannot be the only person that's saying that. You know, when they went to the Raw on Netflix and you see The Rock pretty much kissing Cody Rhodes' ass, saying that, oh, we were back there drinking Terramana tequila and all this other shit and yada, 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 and we're best friends now, and we took a picture backstage. Bro, this guy beat the piss out of you backstage with a weight belt when you're trying to get in your goddamn tour bus to leave. Beat the piss out of you. You had the match at WrestleMania, I think it was WrestleMania 40 in Philly. That tag team matchup, then you had The Rock involved in the matchup between Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. He played a big, crucial part in that matchup between Rhodes and Reigns. And then we get this matchup here at WrestleMania 42 with Rhodes and Cena. The Rock's nowhere to be found. Instead, we get Travis Scott coming out to help John Cena in the matchup against Cody Rhodes. Where the fuck is The Rock? And I think that ultimately killed the vibe for the main event match at WrestleMania 41. To be honest with you, The Rock fucked plans up for WrestleMania. To be honest with you. And then you see him on interviews and shit like that talking about oh yeah, we're going to let it play out and let John and everything let it run its course. And why the fuck are you even back to begin with? To be honest with you. Why are you involved? If you don't want to be a part of the finish of the storyline, then why are you even a part of it to begin with? Why? Because you're just taking TV time away from other talent that's been there working their ass off day in and day out. You know what I'm saying? Like, The Rock, I don't know, bro. I know a lot of people have The Rock in their Mount Rushmore, and I get that. But The Rock, I don't know, bro. The Rock needs to stay away. You can't, I feel like with The Rock, you can't be half in, half out, to be honest with you. And I know The Rock wears multiple different hats. You know, obviously, he's a member of the board for WWE. He is the president, if you will, of the UFL. I get that. He's also a big-time movie actor. And he's been in a lot of great movies. I get that. But you need to separate your time, bro. If you're going to put yourself in the WWE, you know, headspace, then you need to be there. You know what I'm saying? You're trying to multitask all this other shit. You need to separate your time. Take some time away from the movies and the UFL to be a part of the storyline and see it through and finish it. And I think that was ultimately the issue that I had with The Rock at WrestleMania 41. And you asked me, well, how does The Rock relate to this the Randy Orton John Cena match? It relates due to the fact that we haven't heard anything from The Rock during this heel turn, even from John Cena. Nothing. So that now that he had beaten Orton, so I mean, John obviously is on his retirement tour. So you got to ask yourself, okay, who's next after Orton? I'm not saying it's going to be The Rock. I'm not saying that. But we haven't heard anything from The Rock, from John, or The Rock himself as far as John turning heel. I feel like it's missing that piece for John. And like I said, it relates to this storyline or the situation with John is because are we going to keep getting the same shit from John Cena with his heel turn week in and week out where he cuts a promo, he talks shit about the fans, someone challenges him, then we get the back and forth banter for a couple weeks leading into the pay-per-view. That's going to get old fast. And I'm not the only person that said it. A lot of people now are concerned with the John Cena heel turn. You know what I mean? Because they don't want something that's going to be rinse and repeat week in and week out. Where he goes in the ring, cuts a promo, gets attacked, or someone calls him out, and then we get a match at the PLE or something like that. I don't want that. He needs to mix it up. You already made your point about the fact that you don't like the fans and yada, yada, yada. You need to change it up. But I will give John the benefit of the doubt as well. Like I mentioned earlier, this was probably one of the best matches that John has had since he's been champion. I can promise you that. And two, it's probably one of the best matches he's had since he's been back, to be honest with you. I think it was a great match that he had with Orton. I think it definitely surpassed the match that John had with Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania, 41, night 2. And hopefully we get more of this kind of John Cena in ring-wise moving forward, because I thought it was a great match. John went through an announce table. He went through another table ringside. So it made for a great match. And both those guys obviously have a history between each other. They wrestled multiple times, Orton and John Cena, against each other, with 9 times out of 10 Orton being the heel and John being the babyface. So it was kind of cool seeing that the roles were reversed, where Orton's a babyface and John Cena's the heel. So we're going to see how it plays out. I mean, like I said, as far as Backlash is concerned as a whole, to me, it's I would argue arguably I would say it was almost probably better than WrestleMania 41 Night 1, minus the triple threat match between Punk, Rollins, and Reigns. To be honest with you, I mean, people can argue that, to be honest with you, because besides that triple threat match, WrestleMania 41 Night 1 was shit, besides the triple threat match. So arguably, yeah, you could probably say Backlash could have been better than WrestleMania 41 Night 1, to be honest with you. And Like I mentioned earlier, man, for those that are, complaining about, oh, there should be more matches on these PLEs, bro, no. To be honest with you, no. To me, like I told you guys, man, I'm very big on being an advocate for quality over quantity. To be honest with you, I'll take 5 quality matches over 12 matches that mean jack shit. To be honest with you, and I think a lot of people are on the same boat with that. And I think that's something that, and I am going to bring it up. I think it's something that AEW really needs to look into. Putting on 12 pay-per-view matches is ridiculous. Quality over quantity all day for me, to be honest with you. And I think that's something that hopefully AEW starts doing. But I'm all for, WWE doing these 5 matches or 6 matches for a PLE. I'm all for it. There's no reason for it to be 9 to 10, 11, 12 matches. No. Quality over quantity, to be honest. And it works every fucking time. Every time. And you'll never hear me complain about that, because at the end of the day, and even I mentioned this earlier, I'm not big on Becky Lynch. I'm not. But I'll say this. I think this was one of the best matches that we've seen from Becky against Lyra Valkyria in quite some time. You know what I mean? And I think that's hats off to Becky. It's a hats off to Lyra. I think Lyra's doing a really good job with the Women's Intercontinental title. And she's coming into her own. And Becky being a heel, it does work. It can work. And we're going to see how it plays out. Obviously Lyra got the win over Becky. So we don't know what's going to be next for Lyra or be next for Becky. I know Bayley most likely is going to be on her way back. I'm sure Becky and Bayley is most likely going to happen here sometime soon. And we're going to see what happens. But, yeah, I mean, Backlash from top to bottom, it was a really good show. I'm not going to sit here and say it was the greatest Backlash of all time. No. But for what we got in the 5 matches that we did get for Backlash this year, like I said, bro, I mean, arguably it might be better. This Backlash might be better than WrestleMania 41 Night 1. But with that being said, this is my review of WWE's Backlash. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful, and remember, stay classic. Peace.